All right, we're back with my longtime friend, NBA insider Brandon Scoop B. Robinson. Came back through on the Basketball Society podcast. We're going to talk a little NBA finals and some non-related final stuff going on in the NBA. He pulled up this time with the pinstripe jacket. My lord. When you're in the presence of pinstripes, you just got to know that's high level.
Listen, the Yankees do it all the time. The Bulls did it with the black and the red. Why can't Scoop be? Thanks for having me.
Let me tell you what I find to be the most interesting part of this finals. Well, one of the most interesting things is that OKC is getting the super team treatment in that they have become, and I don't think they're a super team. I just think they're playing super basketball and they have like a super roster. It's not like a superstar super team. It's just they're just playing super basketball and they have a super roster top to bottom. But it's interesting because now people feel like it's so lopsided. Like OKC has had such a dominant season and postseason now. They've got the MVP, the scoring champ, and all their young guys are putting it together. But it's interesting seeing the amount of respect that they're now getting because it feels like and looks like they're ready. It looks like they are ready for a championship now. They don't look like the young guys anymore. And Indiana has this, I mean, they're beating the odds. They have this, they're clearly the Cinderella kind of underdog in the matchup, but it's also why I don't count them out because they keep showing us that they can do these remarkable things. And Rick Carlisle, I think there are elements to it, but I mean, objectively speaking, it's hard not to say that this is kind of a lopsided finals with all that OKC has, even though they're still young. Like they look ready, but they're still young and they're getting this like super team treatment. Like there's no way Indiana can even compete with these guys.
The Thunder are a super team by way of drafting and by key pivotal free agency signings and or trades. That's right. So I kind of file this under 80s Lakers territory. And by that, I mean this. I remember on Scoopy Radio having a conversation with Byron Scott, a member of that Showtime Lakers team, went on to coach in the NBA for some years. And I asked him, about super teams. And, by definition, the Lakers became that when you had Magic, of course, you had Byron Scott, you had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you had Jamal Wilkes, you had all these different names that are Hall of Famers, legends. James Worthy, add that to the list. By no means am I comparing the Oklahoma City Thunder to the Los Angeles Lakers, but what I am saying is that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Isaiah Hartenstein, Alex Caruso, and the other Jalen Williams as a collaborative team. They are a team that has been in the trenches for some time. I was getting a lot of flashbacks. I was recently in Minnesota working a couple games during the Western Conference Finals and was walking the halls of the Target Center. And it was funny because in 2022, I actually developed a solid rapport with both the Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder at Target Center at back-to-back games, December of 2022. And it's been this journey. I remember asking Rick Carlisle after a game, who does Tyrese Halliburton remind you of? And he couldn't give me an answer. And then I started asking guys like Benedict Mathurin and Miles Turner in the locker room. And then I remember the Thunder coming into town and asking head coach Mike Dangle about the fact that the Thunder are not highly regarded amongst the NBA's elite at that time, the Warriors, the Lakers. And he basically said, I don't have an answer for that, but we're just going to continue to do what we're doing. And 3 years later, I look at both of these teams, kind of getting flashbacks like, wow, this was 3 years ago.
Hmm.
From 22 to 25, we've seen the Celtics win it. We've seen um, the Warriors win it, and now are looking at the potential additive of the Thunder or the Pacers winning it in 3 short years. We've seen Tyrese Halliburton and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander morph beyond our eyes. They're playing for the teams that they actually didn't start with. Halliburton started with the Sacramento Kings. and was almost part of a Ben Simmons trade. There was conversation between the Sacramento Kings and the 76ers, and then ultimately, it didn't happen. And Halliburton was part of the trade that brought Sabonis to Sacramento, and Halliburton is in Indiana. And then you look at Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, part of that Paul George trade with the Clippers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, and he went from being up under the wing of Chris Paul in Los Angeles his rookie year to now running the ship in Oklahoma. It's a storyline that is beautiful to see and hear. And we don't necessarily have to talk about the big teams, the Lakers, the Knicks, the Clippers, the Celtics, the Warriors. Like these are two brand new teams. The only thing that I can kind of compare it to, and I left off the Nuggets as well as champions in 2023, the
Mhm.
only small teams that we've seen of recent that, really I look at one of them as a smaller team, but we've seen in 2023, we saw the Jokic-led Denver Nuggets beat the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals in 2023. I don't look at Miami as a small market. It's a smaller market comparatively to New York or Los Angeles, but Miami still is a superfluous venue to go about your business. But I don't have a problem with the Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder because ever since I've really started paying attention to them, taking trips to visit them and really get to know their players, I've been impressed with their professionalism. I've been impressed with their durability and their ability to get it done when many people counted them out.
Everyone's talking about the similarities, the depth, the athleticism, the range, the two-way players. But one of the biggest differences, it's just like you just look at OKC and they've just got, it's like they're just better. Like they just got better guys at the stuff that they both do well. To your point about both these teams, I mean, look at the biggest additions they made. They weren't big time names, big time superstar additions. They weren't big threes and super teams formed. Indiana added Pascal Siakam, and Oklahoma City added Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein, and just making these little tweaks along the way. And obviously, what's been huge for each of them is SGA has catapulted into an MVP level player. Halliburton has continued to be consistent and elevate his game in big moments and has become a superstar level type of player. But they haven't had to make these huge swings just to have a chance at winning a title this year.
I think you bring up a good point, and let's not forget to mention rather, that Oklahoma, when I mentioned 2, 3 years ago where they were doing a lot of this without Chet Holmgren. So adding Isaiah Hartenstein to an already painted picture was literally just like adding gloss to a masterpiece Picasso, and that Picasso being Oklahoma. I think the other portion to Oklahoma. I think they were good. I think they believe they're good. Um, and it's
Yeah.
interesting. I'll share this with spending some time with Oklahoma throughout the course of the season. I remember being in a locker room with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I remember being around Shea when he was drafted. I remember the first time I met Shea. I met him in a hallway, um, and I had on these print pants. And he's big on fashion. And he goes, "Yo, I love your pants. Where'd you get them from?" And I'm like, "I can't tell you all that." And we laughed. And I would see him at parties and just the conversation would morph. So this is back when he was getting drafted. Fast forward to this season. Um, I remember Shea saying at some point in the first half of the season, I won't say where we were because I want to give it up, but basically what I'll say is what he said to someone in the room was, "Man, if we have to stay here overnight, I got to start preparing for life as things progress and see what that looks like with flying privately."
Hmm.
And it was almost like this man is seeing what that looks like. If he wants to fly privately, if he wants to bring his family and fly privately, or he's looking at other business opportunities where he might have to leave the team for a little bit and then come back. But the person that he said it to, it was someone in a leadership authoritative position. It wasn't like he said it amongst one of his teammates. But when he said it amongst the group, there was no hesitation in what he said because they acknowledge that he's the face of the team, he's the star, and that he has pull. but as a group, they are cohesive. And I'll take that and I'll raise you. I remember in that sequence, maybe a little while later, having a conversation with Jalen Williams about, yo, who styles your clothes? And he looked at me, he goes, Shay, he's a stylish MFer. And they just do everything as a team. It feels so much like a college team
Yeah.
and a college test.
Yeah.
I've spent significant time in Oklahoma over the last couple of years, and I went from going to Thunder games to going to Oklahoma Sooner games, and the town. Um, you and I both have connection to going to college together, and the only thing I can compare it to is like the way a town of Wayne or Radnor, Pennsylvania caters to Villanova, or the way the city of Dallas caters to the Cowboys. Like they haven't made it in a city from down to they got drummers at the top of the arena drumming, and like everything is interconnected in Oklahoma. And the last time we've seen star power like this, to me, it was with Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, James Harden, and this is the second iteration of that. They grew up watching them,
Yeah.
so they know the ins and outs, and they can call Russell on speed dial. And even to this day, the Oklahoma City area, caters to them. I've spent time with Russell in Oklahoma. I was with him the day he got traded to the Houston Rockets, and that was in Tulsa, and just the way that area. He had a comedy show at the time when I was with Russell. I was in the back with him. We were talking and chatting and just talking about a lot of different intricacies and just that whole process. They were very sad that he left, and I see so much similarity in the way that they handled Russell and the way that they look at Shea. I answered more than you asked, because I've been giving a lot of credit to the Oklahoma City Thunder, but believe you me, Indiana caters to the Pacers just the same. I think outside of the Pacers having Halliburton and Miles Turner, I think one of the best moves that they made over the last couple of years was adding Aaron Nesmith.
Mm.
I got to know Aaron when he was a member of the Boston Celtics, um, and was not getting much playing time under then head coach Ime Udoka, playing alongside Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and others. And I think Nesmith is a basketball lifer
Mm.
all the way from high school to present day and has had time playing around some of the greats. And if it wasn't for his key plays during the Eastern Conference Finals, particularly I believe in Game One and Game Two, I don't know if Indiana would be in the position, and particularly in Game One, because Game One is where many people thought that the Knicks were going to win, and they didn't win that game, and it went downhill from there. So, I think this is a well-oiled machine themselves, and I think it's just a crop of young people who are etching their names into so many things, and I think the country is going to fall in love with many of the storylines that are the Pacers and the Thunder that I've gotten to know over the last few years.
There is just the conversation and the reality that this is one of the least interesting finals to the casual basketball fan. My brother, I keep having to remind him who's the kid on the Thunder again? How do you say his name? And remind him of what Halliburton's name is. He just doesn't know. And from a basketball standpoint, though, I'm very much looking forward to it. The matchups, the players involved, the storylines, but those stories are going to help people get more familiar, and especially when you talk about OKC and Shea, like you might as well get familiar because they're not going to be going anywhere.
I spent some time with Shay's dad last week, and kind of learned more about his story. And what I've learned is he's literally his dad's wildest dreams.
Hmm.
One of his dad's wildest dreams, excuse me. Um, I asked his dad his background. He sold insurance. He did a lot of different things in business, and basketball was his son's dream. And his son looks just like him. He's very proud of his son's success. He's very eager to see what happens in this series. And um, he quietly, doesn't have an agenda. He's really just kind of telling the story. And if I may, it kind of his level of in a day and age where dads get a lot of attention. Some are more outspoken than others. I think what makes Shea a lot different is number one, he has Canadian roots,
Hmm.
but he also has island roots. He's from Antigua.
Hmm.
And so just the underdog story that is there, you see the jewels, you see the fashion, the way it was iterated to me from his dad. They come from nothing, and to have this point in life to enjoy the fruits of the labor, that's great. They still have not arrived, but I get the sense from his dad that there's so many things and so many stories that he wants to tell. From a media perspective, specifically, he is, you know, united with a lot of the other NBA dads, and if I can kind of compare his temperament, kind of reminds me of one in Dedrick Irving, Kyrie Irving's father, who doesn't like the spotlight but has accomplished so much in his own right and is really here for the betterment of his son. The only other father that I can kind of compare him to is kind of um, Jason Tatum's dad. Very quiet and has his own thing going on, coaches multiple teams, but his dad is very excited talking about Shea, about just the level of success. And I think the world is beginning to learn more about him outside of just the nice clothes, the big flashy red boots. He's the league's rating MVP, and he's been proving why he's not just a free throw merchant.
When you look at OKC, they are the sum of their parts. They're so deep. I think the when I watch OKC, the main thing, especially in that Minnesota series, as you see them like wear down Anthony Edwards, it's the fact that they have like Brandon, you have Alex Caruso and Lou Dort and by the way, all your best players are also two-way guys that defend at a high level. So like Shea can match up. He does things defensively. Jalen Williams plays defense. Chet, we know what he does protecting the rim. So your best guys, but even Case and Wallace, even guys that you're bringing off the bench, these guys can defend at a high level. So it's not like Lou Dort isn't your one defensive specialist. They have multiple defensive specialists, and I think that's what Brandon, honestly, I think this series, that's why people are so hung up on like Indiana not having a chance because you're looking at the things that it's like, we know they want to push pace. Well, this ain't the Knicks. You don't want to really be pushing pace that much with Oklahoma City unless you're figuring out a way to get stops.
I don't want to disrespect the Knicks at all. I won't disrespect the Knicks, but I wonder how much more of a tune-up game for Oklahoma Boston would have been had the Celtics advanced to the next round instead of the Knicks. I don't think the Knicks were expected at the beginning of the season. I think the jury was still very much out on how all of those pieces would fit. One, without Dante DiVincenzo, who was the heart and soul of that team.
Yeah.
Uh, Two, where Towns would fit. And three, where Mikal Bridges would fit in that system. And all of those questions were pretty much answered. I actually think that the Pacers playing the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals as a scrappy team
Mm-hmm.
actually mirrored what the Knicks were against the Boston Celtics in
Yeah.
the second round,
Yeah.
particularly in games one and two.
Yeah.
And I feel like for the Pacers, hustle, trick shots, and just being knocked out, knocked around, and for 3 quarters, you can't play Oklahoma like that because Oklahoma is going to bash you for 30, 40 points on the offensive end
Right.
and then play heavy defense the other way.
That's right.
It's not going to me, it's not going to be like playing against the Cavs. It's not going to be like playing against the Knicks.
That's why people have such little confidence in Indiana because when you're going against a team that is that stout defensively and can score the ball at a high clip, like OKC is an example of a team. That's why they look so championship ready because it looks like they can win games in different ways. And so if the game is over 110, I don't even know who that favor. I don't know any like that might help Indiana, but that might be not be that good. If the game is low scoring, that automatically favors OKC. And honestly, Brandon, I predict that OKC might even want to challenge themselves to have one or two of these games hold Indiana under 100 points. And I think they have the ability to do it because, again, when the team is that good defensively, you need special offensively to counter it. And Hallie can be
As a,
special. Pascal can be special. They have special in them, but we're talking about winning 4 games. We're talking about 4 games of special. And as much as Indiana can do it collectively against a team that good and that stout and that deep, you're going to need some special offensive play to counteract that.
I've seen Pascal Siakam be subdued before defensively by the opposing team, but I've also seen Halliburton be subdued the same way. And so when those two are not on their A game, who steps up? And I
Oh,
think the scary is you're expecting Miles Turner, but I feel like the Thunder have something for that too. One of the most underrated um, moves during free agency was the move that was actually a trade between one of the Chicago Bulls and the Oklahoma City Thunder that shipped Josh Giddey to the Bulls in exchange for Alex Caruso. And I think that is the defensive part. That's going to be very interesting for Tyrese Halliburton. I look at Alex Caruso, a guy that's won a championship with the Lakers, has experience working his way up in the G League under his current head coach, was his coach on the Thunder G League team, and Mark Dagnall.
mm.
Um, he has the chance to be mentioned amongst the defensive pests that include Shane Battier, Bruce Bowen, and others. This is his moment, and I think that this is the time to shine defensively for him. The Thunder have the right antidote to go head to head with the Pacers, and this is their moment. And just those two pieces in Hartenstein and Caruso, I think that's going to be very interesting for the Pacers, and it's going to give them fits if it goes the way many people think it will.
Yeah, I think they're going to really try to put on a defensive clinic. I think they're really going to test Indiana to see like can you be special? Can you score the ball like that against us? You brought up Aaron Nesmith and you brought up his game 1 heroics in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Knicks. I mean, he did something I'd never seen something like that before, Brand. He made 5 threes in a row. They were down 17 with like 3.5 minutes left. He made 5 threes in a row. And I mean, the Knicks were having defensive laps after defensive laps, and so they didn't do them any favors. But even so, making 5 threes in a row in an Eastern Conference Finals game on the road, right? It's not like they were just giving them to. I mean, they weren't playing great defense, but still, you've got to make the shots. He made 5 in a row, and those are the things, Brandon. Like it's stuff like that, and I hate to go basketball religion here, but the basketball gods are somewhat smiling on Indiana. It's the basketball state. Who knows what might be in store? Who knows what Rick Carlisle has up his sleeve? Maybe a little zone, maybe forcing OKC into their one weakness, which is shooting the three. Everyone can hit shots. They can make shots, but it's probably their one kind of, I wouldn't call it a flaw, but it's one of their only weaknesses. They're not all great 3-point shooters. I think Rick Carlisle might go to some zone. People have referenced Brandon the 2011 finals, obviously, because Rick Carlisle was part of that, coaching Dallas, and they upset the Miami Heat. Now, this isn't exactly that because again, we talked about this. We respect OKC enough to kind of call them a super team, but it's not the kind of vibes that Miami was given with LeBron, D Wade, and Bosh. But again, it's the same kind of thing where clear underdog. People are counting Indiana. People do not think they have a chance. And so Rick Carlisle just kind of looking at it, I'm interested to see what he's coming with because Indiana, they believe in each other. Like Aaron Nesmith hitting those 5 threes in a row in the first game. Like that wasn't just some luck of the stuff like that happens when good energy is on your side, when you believe in each other, when your coach believes in you, when they know who to give it to, and there's unselfishness involved. When you have that, you give yourself a chance. I just think Indiana's going to have to be so sharp and so sound and so honestly explosive offensively to even give themselves a chance.
You can play a perfect game and still lose.
That's what you're up against.
I
Exactly.
look at the San Antonio Spurs in 2013. When you talk about being so good and the basketball gods
There you
look
go.
out for you,
Yeah.
it's a Ray Allen three and a Chris Bosh play to propel the Miami Heat to a championship with Miami's big three. Now we're not comparing Oklahoma to Miami's Big Three at all. In fact, I would actually compare them to a more mature 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder team that was actually playing the Miami Heat in 2012. This is a team in Oklahoma that was partying in Miami rather than, I've heard stories about the level of partying and unseriousness that was going on in the Oklahoma City Thunder locker room. That's not the case here.
Yeah.
Have a lot of young um, professionals.
Mm.
Um, you have professional YNs on the Oklahoma City Thunder team.
That's good.
And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to less about their lack of maturity or professionalism. It's going to come down to little things, whether they're not able to hit the threes or they're going to allow the Indiana Pacers to sneak up on them. I remember game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. The crowd thought they had game one in hand. They danced into Mary J. Blige at halftime, um, and just thought that they had it. And they were too. I tweeted after game one, they were too comfortable.
Mm.
Now, I didn't like Tyrese Halliburton doing the choking thing, the Reggie Miller choking thing. I thought it was a little too early for that.
He thought it was a three, though. He thought it was too early, but he thought it was. If it was a three, it would have been valid. No,
I,
even if it was a three, you don't like it?
I'm big on not talking until the job is
Okay.
done.
Okay. No, I'm with you on that.
So your boy Kobe, job not finished. It's
Yeah.
finished,
Yeah.
finished. And I'm gonna be honest with you, those two games that the Knicks won, I said to myself, if I'm the Knicks, I take that whole choking thing personally.
Hmm.
But more of that had more to do with it just being it was never going to be a sweep series.
Yeah.
Uh, there were many critics or experts who thought it would be a gentleman's sweep. That the Knicks impressed me by getting a second game, but had they gotten the first game and it had been a 3-3 series, I think be having a different conversation now. But ultimately for the Pacers, that's just been their DNA all season, scrappy. And
Yeah.
that's why, as much as it's the Thunder are the favorites, um, we've seen Apollo Creed get knocked out by Rocky Balboa before.
Hey man, listen, I don't think it's. I think what makes it most lopsided, honestly, is SGA versus Hallie. But it's like Hallie is still Hallie. I don't think the other players in the Thunder. I think skill wise and athletically, I think OKC has the advantage. But you look on the other side, you don't see as much talent. But it's not that much of a drop off. Listen, guys, like I mean, Obi Toppin's gonna have an incredible series. I thought he played great against the Knicks. I mean, he's doing things that I didn't know he could do. He's shooting the three ball better. Still got the athleticism, of course, but like he's doing more than just like being a run and jump athlete. He's been playing really well for Indiana.
One of the many reasons that he ultimately wanted out of New York was for a reason that New York doesn't even have anymore.
Mm,
New York was so very gung ho on Julius Randle. And Julius Randle and Obi pretty much play the same position. And Obi benefited the Pacers in a way that many thought he'd benefit the Knicks. Because I think Obi played a style of play in New York as a four man. Um, that was the Knicks were still very stoic in their approach and how they wanted to utilize him. And it's funny because Julius Randle is actually a hybrid himself.
yeah.
And so he left for some of the very same reasons. He wanted his money, but both he and uh, their point guard need the ball in their hands in order to be successful. I've always looked at Julius as a blue collar LeBron or Iguodala as far as having the ball in your hand, creating plays for yourself or creating plays for others.
Mhm.
And now the Knicks are a little bit skinnier, but they've added more pieces. They've added the Josh Harts. They've added, the Mikal Bridges as well as the Carl Towns. But as far as Obi Toppin goes, many people looked at him as just a high flyer, but he's got more in the bag than just that. I think people looked at him as more of a Blake Griffin. He's just a dunker.
Right.
8 shots. He's refined his jump shot. I actually look at him as Blake Griffin and Dominique Wilkins after the slam dunk fanfare.
Mm,
I think for Dominique, injuries were his Achilles heel. But as far as Blake Griffin goes, he developed a consistent jumper and has been able to move around from team to team and be successful. So I do think Obi Toppin has the chance to be successful in this series. I think as much as eyes are on Halliburton, I think Obi as well as Pascal Siakam, as well as Miles Turner, as well as Aaron Nesmith. The world is still that our country is still getting to know some of these key fixtures in basketball. But for those who are basketball lifers, I think this is a series for them. It's not the fanfare of a major city.
Yeah, for sure. The small market NBA finals. We've talked about these small market franchises really coming up, and obviously we're in the age of parity in the NBA. Different teams, different franchises are having their time in the sun. The Knicks hadn't been in the conference finals for 25 years. It is the time of get your ducks in a row, figure it out. It could be anybody's time this year, next year, or the year after. It's wide open. I just think, man, Neesmith, Nembhard, these guys have to play so well. Obi Toppin, TJ McConnell, everybody's got to play well, man. And to your point, as you said before, they could still be losing games. Just all those defenders on OKC, and they can all guard different people. Like Caruso could be on Obi Toppin, Lou Dort can be on Obi Toppin, can be on Miles Turner. Like their switchability is just it's almost unfair.
And LeBron in practice and Zach LaVine in practice. He better.
It's unfair, man. It's really crazy.